So this is for Sirius XM. And this,
Sirius XM, well done, everybody.
yeah. And also for Access Television that's recording the show tomorrow night and going to be broadcast.
Yeah.
So the thing that I find interesting in listening to all your interviews is people talking about the impact that your music has had on so many people. But the fact is, I mean, I've been meditating since 1969.
This morning?
Yeah, meditated
Okay,
this
good.
morning. I've been teaching it for almost 40 years.
Yeah.
Head up the foundation. But the thing, while the music has had such an impact, the fact is, Ringo, you guys going and meeting Maharishi and then talking about it, actually now like millions of people are accessing that field of peace and love within.
Yeah.
And that has transformed lives, I don't know, differently than the beautiful music you
Sure.
produced. And I think this event, where you're being honored for a lifetime of peace and love, is very significant. I mean, just by setting it up, millions of people meditating. It's in schools, it's in businesses, it's everywhere, it's mainstream. And you went in 1967, met Maharishi, and started the whole thing.
Yeah. Well, the meeting of Maharishi is what started, and the other part of the story was John and George going to a seminar of his in the Hilton.
In London.
In London, and coming back and leaving me a message to say, we met this man. Didn't even say who he was. We met this man. We're going to Wales. You got to come. So, okay. So and we went. And when I first met him, it was in a room because it was in a university. So we're like in dorm, in a dormitory. We're all living. And it's one of those mind-altering moments of your life, because the man was so full of joy, and happiness, and it just blew me away. On my best day, I never felt like he looked. Wow. It was so far out. He was I just thought, I want some of that. You know what I mean? Yeah. I was the best thing that could happen.
Where were you before that? What were you?
Well, I never meditated in my life.
But even just your head,
No, my head was a bit in those last sort of 67. Mainly 67 was a bit confused. A lot of things were going on. And anyway, he was one of the people who helped me out of that. Just, not that he said, here, right, I'm helping you out. He was helping everybody, but he seriously helped me.
And was your philosophy of life, I mean, now you talk about peace and love. And,
I do.
Yeah, a lot. I mean, and I was there for your birthday, and
yeah,
because Elizabeth invited me for it, Hard Rock. Were you that way before? Did you? I remember hearing an interview. You said when you were a kid, you had some transcendent experiences.
Well, as a kid, you have experiences, and you can't put that word on it. Who ever heard of that word? You just felt. I just felt occasionally there was a power, but there was a power greater than myself. But I didn't know those words, and they stick with you, those moments, And one of them I've never talked about was in Greece, when we went on to Greece. We were looking to buy an island. I mean, how spiritual is that? We never bought the island, and we rented a boat with Magic Alex, we used to have working for us, who was Greek. And I was in a shop, and some vibe from the guy. I felt, wow, you know what I mean? I remember that guy. Why would I remember that? So there's a lot through life. You remember it's a moment, but there's no words you can put on it, really. It's just, there's a feeling. There's just a feeling.
And the feeling was not normal happiness?
Well, it wasn't a feeling I have every day. And it was like, wow, something's happened. I don't know what it is. I'm a kid. Right. I'm a grown-up. Something's happened. And, I've put those now onto sort of a spiritual moment, really.
When you performed at Radio City Music Hall in 2009 for David Lynch Foundation, basically launched the David Lynch Foundation, you and Paul sang a song, Cosmically Conscious.
Yeah,
remember that?
I'm cosmically conscious of you.
Yeah, cosmically conscious of you. And Maharishi himself would talk about those.
He would say that.
Yeah. So what was that? What did he?
Well, he'd say stuff like that. And, one of my favorite stories, that we're all in India, and there was a lot of people there, and we were living at the ashram, You know, you had to fight the monkeys off for your breakfast, and God forbid you wanted a bath, you'd have to get the scorpions out the way. There was all that side too, but you know, it was this guy said, you know, because Maharishi were talking, oh, yes, on the corner, Kundalini sharks. And the guy said, excuse me, Maharishi, what are these Kundalini sharks? And he said, no, sharks, not sharks. So there was a lot of fun. Anyway, I had great memories of it. I wasn't there long. We just had a kid, so we came back. 2 weeks I was there. We had life to deal with as well.
But that experience, or that whatever you learned from being around Maharishi, what I'm interested in is how that moment, because I know you've learned many things since then, was that a transformative moment where you suddenly realized, oh, there's something more inside?
Yes, it was an absolute moment in Wales. I went into this room first time, I'd met the man, and the joy of the man was incredible. Was incredible. You know, it was like it was positive. You know what I mean? It was like it was solid. And anyway, so that's what drew me in.
And then he taught you to meditate. He gave you a mantra.
He did. He gave me my mantra himself. Same way I'm sure you do it, with an apple and a handkerchief.
Yeah. And your experiences when you learned?
Well, it was interesting when you learn, because you think, oh, am I doing it right? Am I doing it right? And, of course, I would go and ask him and the people around us at the time. And you just had to relax, because this was a new way of being. So you had to learn to relax behind it. And he had a great line, Maharishi. He said, you know, if you're in a if you go to meditate, you sit there quietly and you will be energized, which you are. You really energized. But he said, if you fall asleep, don't worry. You're just tired. You know, it was all very simple. It wasn't like, oh, and then, you know, way out and beyond. It was like, you're tired. That's why you fell asleep. Go with it. Nothing to fight, you know.
I think people had a lot of misunderstandings about Maharishi. You know, the press made it into him to be many different things.
Well, yeah, what the press do, don't they?
Yeah.
They say I'm 6 foot tall.
You're not?
Nope, 5'11" and a half.
Okay, let's fast forward.
Yeah.
So we fast forward to this event for you receiving the Lifetime of Peace and Love Award.
Yeah, how great is that? I mean, you know, I was asked, would you receive? What do you mean, would I? Honored to receive. You know, it's great.
And what is it, you know, you've come to know David, your sense of David and his work.
The sense of David in his work is brilliant. I mean, he's doing a lot more than I am, and you, and, you know, the foundation. I mean, that's what it's working for. You know, I mean, the big one for me, of course, is the bringing meditation into schools. And, you know, and he was telling me that, you know, they know from the heads of schools that the violence has gone down. How far out is that? Yeah. You know?
Particularly when kids are taking guns into school.
I know. Yeah. Well, you know, it's in, like, hard schools it mainly goes in. And I don't know if he does like other schools as well, you know, if he's doing the Hollywood schools. I don't know. But, you know, so whatever he's doing, that is incredible. You have to support him for that.
And now they're finding research that those same kids where the violence goes down, the grades get better.
Yeah. Well, of course they do.
Yeah.
You know, it's like, you know, my dream with the Peace and Love sign. I'm putting my fingers up now, Peace and Love, radio listeners, that, you know, while I'm doing that, just while I'm doing that for those 2 seconds, that's all I'm thinking of. I'm not thinking of anything. I'm just saying peace and love. You know, and you feel it when you say it, peace and love. And, you know, the dream, I keep mentioning this dream, 1 day, 1 hour, 1 minute. You know, it's building up. I mean, since I started doing Ringo's birthday on the 7th of July, noon, wherever you are in the world, just stop, even if you're on a bus, I don't care, you're trying on shoes, whatever you're doing, at noon, just say peace and love. Just say peace and love.
I was in Times Square.
Yeah. Well, now it's...
It was very powerful that day. It was very real, very powerful.
You know, and I'm not there when they do it in Japan. They do it, you know, all over the world now, you know. They do it in South America. People are stopping to say peace and love.
July 7th, we'll be reminded, David Lynch Foundation will send the word.
Yeah.
It's fantastic.
At noon, wherever you are.
At noon, we'll do it.
Just keep playing this on a loop.
We're in 35 countries now.
I know. I know.
West Bank.
Yeah. Well, you have to tell them all that. I don't know all of that.
I'm telling you now.
Yeah.
One last thing before we go, because I want people to buy your books.
Well, there's this book, yes. This is the Octopus's Garden book. And, this is a great example of when I was in Sardinia, actually. I was there because, for me personally, it was like hard times with the Beatles. And I've got to leave. I'm going. And I left the Beatles and went on holiday with the kids. And Peter Sellers lent me his boat. I mean, we all know that part of the story. And the captain of that boat told me the story about octopuses do this. I mean, I knew nothing about octopuses. And the idea that they built these gardens, I mean, they're still I think if a spaceship comes down, it'll probably be the octopuses they talk to. It won't be us. It'll be the octopus and the whales and the odd dolphin. And so he told me this great story. I thought it was just the most beautiful story I'd heard, and I got lucky. I had a guitar with me, and I had an idea of a melody, and I sang the words, and it related to my peace of mind, state of mind at that moment, because I would have loved to have been under the sea. Not dying or anything, just with my friends, and we would dance around. It would all be cheerful, it would all be up, and it's now has turned into this children's book.
Well, Ringo,
yeah.
On behalf of the 6 million people who've learned to meditate, transcendental meditation, and Maharishi, you said beautiful quote. When Maharishi passed away, you sent a beautiful quote.
Yeah.
I thank you, because your legacy is going to be beyond just music. It is. Time magazine said Maharishi was responsible for bringing this whole wave of meditation to the world. Was responsible yoga, and you were there at the beginning.
I was and I think also it came. I mean, we mustn't forget that George had vague connections.
What was his?
Well, we all went together. He hadn't meditated before us, but he was looking harder than John Paul and I was. And he'd come through the music and, Ravi. And so, and okay. It didn't matter who thought of it or who had the idea. We all just, okay, let's try it. So I want to thank George for that.
Thank you, and I thank you very much.
Thank you.
All right. Thanks a lot, and see you tomorrow night.
You will. Peace and love.
Peace and love.